You're listening to the Dibbly-Dobbly podcast. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get the latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode on the Dibbly-Dobbly podcast. On today's Cricket Ramblings episode, we're going to talk about Test cricket and whether it's declining or not. Following the two-day test at the MCG between Australia and England, I thought it was a good topic to talk about and discuss because everyone's talking about it and talking about Test cricket. Is it declining? Is standards declining? We're seeing more and more of two-day test matches, whole heap of things that are happening with Test cricket. But joining me for this Cricket Ramblings episode, he likes a good ramble himself, is a good friend of the podcast and Australian cricket fan, Jehan. Jehan, welcome.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's great to have you here, Jehan. We like a good ramble from time to time, do we? And we thought, well, we might as well talk about Test cricket because whether or not it's declining, following the two-day test in Melbourne in this fourth Ashes test, people blaming, well, batting techniques, the pitch, players, do they really want to play 5 days, duration of test matches, batting techniques, pitches around the world. So before we talk about a whole range of different topics to cover this one specific question, is Test cricket declining? Now, obviously, when we're in this preparation for this episode, Jehan, you had a lot of ideas that were flowing out of your mind. So it's an opportunity for you to get them out today in this episode with me, but also people watching and listening as well to get your thoughts and how you see Test cricket going these days. Is it better than it was back in the old days? Who knows? That's what we're going to discuss. So first of all, we're going to talk about test pitches, Jehan. Obviously, following what happened in Melbourne with the two-day test, pitches have been the central focal point of cricket for since the dawn of time. It has to be said, and they are very important in terms of, deciding how a cricket match will go. There's a lot of scrutiny on pitches in terms of whether or not pitches should be able to provide a good balance between the bat and the ball. So what we've seen recently in Australia, but also around the world, we've seen test matches end in 2 days, people criticizing the pitch and people criticizing different things about it and how players have gone about it. No different in this Ashes series at the moment, Jehan, following the Melbourne test and also what happened in Perth. You have to say in Melbourne, it was more the seam movement. In Perth, it was more the bounce and pace and good bowling from both Australia and England. You could say the same here in Melbourne as well, but it was seam movement and the amount of grass left on the surface. So it's one of those things, isn't it, Jehan, that we always have a constant debate about is pitches. And now with the World Test Championship, countries around the world want points, and there's been a big difference in terms of producing result wickets compared to wickets that weren't really brought about in terms of getting results. And we saw a lot more draws. But now with the World Test Championship, draws have decreased and results have increased. And we've seen lively pitches, and test batting has been difficult for so many years. Averages have gone down, bowling averages have gone up. So what are your thoughts on that, Jehan, in terms of pitches around the world in Test cricket? Is that contributing to the declining state of Test cricket?
Yeah, I think if we go country by country, we'll start with Australia. The pitches in the last few years have definitely been a lot more bowler friendly. There's been more grass left on the wicket. There's been more movement. The ball, the Kookaburra ball itself, I think has more lacquer on it now, or the seam lasts a lot longer, so that's been quite difficult to play as well. And yeah, it's interesting that the MCG wicket for the Test match, I thought was one of the worst wickets I've seen in a Test match in Australia.
Is it even worse than the one at the MCG in 2017-18 with the Ashes, where Alistair Cook made 244 and it was an absolute road? Even worse than that. That was a pretty poor pitch too.
Yeah, bad in terms of impossible, like difficult to bat on.
That sort of makes sense. But I was sort of referring to sort of, is it sort of in that sort of atmosphere sort of thing, in terms of, worst pitches that you've ever seen sort of thing. But in terms of difficulty, probably this one in Melbourne, yes, definitely.
Yeah, maybe Melbourne 4 years ago as well, when England got bowled out for 68. That was quite tough.
I thought the pitch for this Test match was similar to that one 4 years ago. There were some similarities about it because Australia won by an innings and they didn't score much in the first innings, only 200, and Scott Boland did his thing and took 6 for 7. So I thought that pitch and this pitch were very similar in terms of how the match sort of panned out in a way. Yeah.
And then the Gabba against South Africa 3 years ago.
Oh yes, that was a really bad. Green top.
Yeah, really green. A lot of uneven bounce, balls flying through. And I don't really understand it. I mean, is it all a result of that 2017 MCG pitch that this has happened? The great cricketer guys have a theory that once Pat Cummins took over the captaincy, he was like, "Oh, we're just going to have bowling pitches from now on."
Fair enough.
Cummins got the captaincy and said, "We'll just bowl from now on."
No, I think they wanted to change the way that pitches were in Australia, because pitches in Australia for a long time were very flat, very flat. I remember in the mid 2000s and probably into the 2010s, it was quite high scoring, wasn't it? I remember when Australia played South Africa, they scored heavily in that series in 2012-13. When Australia played India in 2011-12, it was high scoring from Australia. They scored 500, 600. India scored 400, I think, on a few occasions in that series. So throughout those early 2010s sort of years, pitches in Australia were quite good for batting, and bowlers had to work hard for their wickets, and the ball was very different, the Kookaburra ball. So I think they just wanted to provide a different a balance between bat and ball again, and that's why bowlers complained as well about the Kookaburra ball. It was soft and the seam was nothing, and now it's turbocharged, more lacquer on the ball, the seam's a lot pronounceder, and pitches have a bit more grass on them. So I think they just wanted to provide that balance between bat and ball, but also test batters as well in terms of their techniques and skill set, because you're not going to gain much from a flat pitch. That's not entirely true. You're still going to gain something, but you're not challenged enough every ball if it's seaming or swinging or moving. And certainly here in Australia, we do struggle with that where we go to England in recent years. Yeah. So I think that's what they wanted to try and do, and also maybe they've done a little bit too much in terms of the pitch.
I think they've gone too far the other way.
They've gone too far a bit, you would have to say. Yeah. And what we saw in Melbourne and Perth in this Ashes series is evidence of that, going too far and not getting the balance right. So that's my reasoning behind the whole thing, really.
Yeah. No, yeah, you're right. They've gone too far the other way now. I think Australia always plays its best cricket when they're playing on fast, bouncy wickets with not much seam movement and maybe a bit of swing early on, let's say, and deteriorate and turn towards the end. I think that's the template for Australia to really play good cricket. And when I was growing up, late 90s, 2000s, the wickets were all really, really pretty flat. But then you had extra pace and bounce at the Wacker, extra pace and bounce at the Gabba. At the Gabba, you might get a bit of swing and a little bit of seam movement early on, but it generally flattens out. But you still have that pace and bounce.
Yeah, then Adelaide was flat, was very flat. And then it spun towards the end.
Adelaide was very flat.
And then
Sydney,
Hobart was Hobart was a bit of a seamer's paradise, a bit of green on top.
yeah,
But still pretty good wicket to score runs on. And then obviously Sydney used to turn, didn't it? Not so much anymore, but
yeah, Sydney used to turn a lot. I remember the 99 Test match against England, Ashes Test match. They went into that game with only one fast bowler. They only played McGrath, opened the bowling with Colin Miller, who could bowl a bit of medium pace. And then it was Warren, McGill and Colin Miller's off spin for most of that match. That sort of, by the 2000s, that Sydney pitch became really flat, like the Adelaide one. That series against India in 2003-04, which was a drawn series. The Gabba was drawn. I think they had a bit of weather there. India won at Adelaide on a really flat pitch. When I think Dravid and Laxman batted for a whole day. They had India, I don't know, 50 for 4 or something, and then 350 for 4. They just couldn't get those guys out. And so that was a very flat wicket. They won in Melbourne. Australia won in Melbourne to make it 1-1. And then they went on to Sydney, where India batted first and scored 750 or something. So that's what I remember. Like, they were really flat wickets. In those days, the only overseas teams that took advantage of that was India, probably, because if England would come along and they're not used to batting for long periods of time. But generally, I don't remember any poor pitches. They were all really flat. And you had extra pace and bounce at the Wacker and the Gabba, and sometimes at the MCG as well. Sometimes the MCG pitches, the ball would fly through as well. But I think that's where Australia play their best cricket, because they get good at facing fast bowling. They learn proper techniques. A lot of the guys growing up from England playing county cricket on green seamers in April, where they can hardly get the bat on the ball, they end up developing weird techniques because that's the only way they can survive when the ball's doing all sorts. I think I don't know what's I don't understand what's happened. I don't think it's helped Australia really. These
not really, because when you think about it, Australia's test batting in Australia has gone down in terms of averages and also scores as well. I can't remember too many scores in excess of 500 plus. Maybe the odd 500 and the odd 450 or 400 score. But mainly it's been high 300s, 350 is probably the highest, and that's about it.
Well, I mean,
in the last few years. It also depends on opposition as well. The West Indies came out here for a bit, so Australia scored big against them. New Zealand, they scored big runs against them in 2019-20 summer. Pakistan, when they were out here in 2019-20 as well, they got big scores there as well, Australia. So it's probably since the last Ashes series where we've seen the pitches change dramatically, because before that, it's pretty much the same. And now
I was listening to Moses Henriques and Stephen O'Keefe's podcast, and they were talking about the MCG pitch. And Moses Henriques said, "Why are we surprised about this? We've been playing on this sort of pitch in Shield cricket for the last 4 or 5 years." So that's apparently what they play on in Shield cricket. And I remember Fergus O'Neill saying something like, "All he does at the MCG is run up and bowl half volleys, and he gets wickets." So that's also an issue in terms of trying to produce world-class international bowlers as well, right? And there is a lack of real, after Stark Cummins and Hazelwood, there's a lack of real pace bowlers coming through who are playing lots of first-class cricket and getting lots of wickets in first class cricket. We've got a few pace bowlers that are playing white ball cricket, like Riley Meredith and Billy Stanlake and
Spencer Johnson's come through.
Spencer Johnson, yeah. But we've got a few really quick bowlers in playing Big Bash and white ball cricket. But who's coming through in red ball cricket? Jai Richardson's one, but he's had a lot of injuries. That's why our fullbacks have had to be Nessa and I still rate Boland in that upper bracket. He's not quite as quick, but I think he's still international class. Now I was thinking of the guy that played in Perth, Doggett.
Yeah, Brendan Doggett. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the problem as well. So I think we just need to go back to pitches with pace and bounce that are dry and turn towards the end of the match. Not too much excessive seam movement. You don't want seam movement's fine on day one because it teaches batsmen how to get through that, but you don't want it throughout the whole match. Excessive seam movement.
Yeah.
Because then batsmen just don't learn how to score big runs. So I think they need to do something about the pitches. Well, I remember back in the 2017-18 Ashes, they played on some flat wickets, but they had pace and bounce. Like at the Wacker, England was struggling against the pace and bounce, but they still got, I think Bairstow and Malone got hundreds.
Yeah.
They got 350, 400, but Australia go and bat and get 600, 650.
Yeah, Smith got a double century and had a partnership with Mitchell Marsh, who got 170 odd, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. And the same thing happened in Sydney that series as well. Yeah. And that Sydney wicket was that the ball was actually flying through. Like Cummins and Stark were bouncing out all the tail enders, and guys like Moeen Ali, and that they couldn't hang around because it was the pace and bounce. And that's on the Sydney wicket.
Yeah.
So I think they just need to, and in 8 years ago, all three of those bowlers were bowling a lot quicker, obviously, but I think they just need to go back to those kind of pitches, pace and bounce, not too much sideways, and turn towards the end. If you compare that's what you always got at the Wacker, probably the paciest pitch, the most pace and bounce, but you hardly got any sideways movement, particularly in for the test matches. You compare that to Optus. You play on day one, early day two at the Optus, and the ball's kicking up off a length. It's moving sideways. It's very difficult to bat there, and then it flattens out. But a lot of the time, the teams haven't had enough patience to get through that, and the matches have ended by then. So, they just need to do something about that. And then, so that's Australia. I think England with the Bazball thing have gone the complete opposite way to what they traditionally do in England.
More flatter wickets and
they're flatter and slow and low. I think most of those kind of tracks are pretty slow and low anyway. You don't get too many wickets in England with a lot of pace and bounce. Maybe Oval sometimes. Old Trafford has some pace and bounce sometimes, but generally not. And the thing is, pitches like Edgbaston, when there's cloud cover and with a Duke's ball, it's you sort of bowl with moisture in the pitch. You sort of bowl to what they say. The way they describe it is to kiss the wicket. So you're not banging it in, you're sort of like skidding it off the wicket, and that's how you get people out. But as soon as that sun comes out, or if they deliberately make that track dry, it's not very firm underneath. So you can just get on the front foot to length balls and cream them through the covers like Zach Crawley does. But that's made things difficult for them when they turn up in Perth or Brisbane, for example. So I don't think that's good either for them. Similarly, Pakistan playing on those absolute roads that do nothing.
Yeah,
That's not good for Test cricket. And I always felt that they don't learn proper batting techniques because it's too easy for them to play on those surfaces.
Well, they have sort of changed the way they've gone about pitches over there. We saw that with England in that series. They decided to produce ranked turners, but they had to do a lot of work to the pitch because their pitches in Pakistan naturally aren't like that compared to other countries in the subcontinent, like India and Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, where the ball turns a lot more than it does in Pakistan. So even with that, they had to produce some pitches that did something. But still, it hasn't helped them in terms of their development in Test cricket. And I suppose they haven't played a lot of Test cricket in Pakistan over the last few years, especially this current generation of Pakistan cricketer, because of so many years playing in neutral venues, either UAE or England or whatever. So that has a bit of a factor to play with how they're developing their Test cricket, Pakistan. But yeah, those pitches are very, very flat, and it hasn't helped them, as you said.
No, it hasn't. So yeah, I think Australia just need to go back to good batting wickets. If they want to train themselves against the moving ball, maybe leave a little bit of grass on the wicket day one to help a bit of swing and seam, but not excessively. And then that way they'll learn proper techniques. They'll learn how to bat time as well, and how to bat for long periods of time. And they'll be producing good fast bowlers as well, because it's not going to be. They'll have to do a little bit more than jogging up and bowling half volleys to get wickets.
Yeah, that's right.
And I always felt also, because they often have struggles in the subcontinent, they should try and prepare a couple of turning wickets as well to play at home to improve their game there. Potentially that's something they could do in up north for winter series. We've got the series coming up against Bangladesh. That's something maybe they could look into doing.
Yeah.
Because I always felt that the best players of spin in Australia come from New South Wales, like the War Twins, Michael Clarke, Slater, Michael Bevan, because they're having to play on those turning tracks. So yeah, pitches definitely need to improve. I don't know what's happened. Things have gone too far the other way now.
Yeah, no, it has. Maybe they'll try and revisit that at the end of this summer. Something that Todd Greenberg, the CEO of Cricket Australia, said, we'll have a look at our pitches and reassess what we need to do in terms of across the board. But I suppose it's a problem for all countries around the world, isn't it, Jehan? Pitches are different. We want that uniqueness in terms of different conditions, and particular countries having different conditions and uniqueness about them. Go to the subcontinent, it spins. You go to England, it seams around. Come to Australia, it's bounce and pace and fast in the wickets here. The Caribbean, you could say that really difficult batting conditions. When Australia were there last year, it was pretty tough for batting in those pitches over there. That doesn't help their batters at the moment, doesn't it? On those types of difficult wickets. New Zealand, they produce green tops, but they usually get better for batting as the game progresses. So that's different there. So every country has their different way of going about things with their pitches, but it's probably not helping their own players develop good, solid, reliable techniques and test cricketers in terms of batting for long periods of time, as many people have said over the last few years. And with the World Test Championship as well, Jehan, countries are more inclined to produce results wickets. Do you think that's been a factor in terms of pitches being the way they are around the world, and that's why batting's gone difficult, because countries want to win points for the World Test Championship and, move up the table? What do you reckon on that?
Well, I think England definitely haven't done that because they've gone the other way.
Clearly not.
India have done that, but it's backfired on them.
Yes, they've lost to New Zealand and South Africa now, so you could say it hasn't really gone in their favour. But generally, Indian players are not really good at playing spin, really, especially this current generation of Indian Test cricketers. They're not good at playing spin as their counterparts like Tendulkar and Laxman and Dravid and those greats of yesteryear.
I'm not sure about that really. Are they deliberately doing this to try and? Well, I think India have done that for a while anyway, even before the WTC. But I'm not sure of the reason why Australia are trying to do this or have been making the pitches more bowler friendly. I don't think it is really to get results. Don't really know. Not really sure.
Well, you could say that. You could say it's been that type of approach, or maybe they just wanted to give a bit of a contest between bat and ball in terms of that balance, which they have tried to do, but it hasn't worked on a few occasions. In the last few years, there's been 3 two-day tests in Australia. Now, one against South Africa and Australia in Brisbane, 2022-23, and then obviously 2 in this Ashes series in 25-26. So that's a couple of years in terms of those test matches being close together. Have ended in 2 days. So, maybe the balance, as we've discussed, has probably gone the other way. But I suppose my next question is, Jehan, to you, is the expectations on cricket wickets. As fans, we always have an expectation of a cricket wicket to produce a good contest between bat and ball, to do a bit on the first day for the bowlers, and then get better for batting as the test match progresses, and then obviously turn and spin on days 4 and 5. We have those expectations because we expect those type of wickets to be produced. But when they're not produced, many cricket fans are not happy. Do you think we should temper our expectations as cricket fans in different countries around the world and say, okay, this is the new normal. We've got to get used to it. Cricket pitches are not quite the same as they once were in Test cricket. This is the new normal. This is the modern 21st century of Test cricket. We should get used to it. Or do you think there is a place for those types of old Test wickets, as we've discussed, to be in this modern generation still?
Well, I never remember it being a problem in Australia 25 years ago. The wickets were just good, like for batting and for bowling, and we had an even contest, and it was and we got results. I think probably post 2000, that's when we started getting the really flat wickets in Australia. So that was an issue at times, but not all the time. So I that's why I don't really understand why it's suddenly such an issue 25 years on. There's certain wickets that never have this problem, generally not. The Gabba being one of them. I actually thought that the Gabba wicket this year was quite flat for a typical Gabba wicket. Didn't quite have as much pace and bounce as it usually does, and it was a pretty good batting wicket. But it was still a result.
There's also a day-night test as well. Pink ball reacts different to the surface as well.
Well, it was still a result wicket in the end. I thought Adelaide was too flat, to be honest. When you're closing out a game, you don't really want to see Bryden Cast and Will Jacks getting stuck in. Like, that's just frustrating to watch. The reason we got a result on that wicket was the batting was wasn't great. Well, I mean, it was good, but it wasn't. Australia should have been scoring 450 in the first innings, really. Yeah, so in this series, probably the best wicket of the series was the Gabba, and generally, the Gabba's pretty consistent in delivering a good Test match wicket. It's not always the same wicket every year, but there's a bit of variation in what it does. But it generally is a good contest between bat and ball, and we get a result if the weather's set fair, which Brisbane's not always known to be sunny all the time. It can rain a lot there, but so that's probably the best wicket in the country, and it's always been that way. So I suppose one of the things that's made a difference is the drop-ins. But then, having said that, drop-ins came in the 2000s, and we still had good wickets that were drop-ins back then.
Yes,
so
I think that's why. I think that's a very good point. We forgot to mention that, Jehan, about drop-in wickets in Australia, because nearly all of the grounds in Australia are drop-ins. So Perth, the new stadium, Adelaide and Melbourne are drop-ins. Sydney's still a traditional wicket block, same with Hobart. Manuka and Canberra is a wicket block still. The Wacker was a traditional one, the Gabba. Yeah. But I think that's the reason why they've made the pitches lively, especially at those grounds, Jehan. When you think about it, and look back at the results in those Test matches at the Gabba. Sorry, not the Gabba. The Adelaide Oval, Melbourne, and the new stadium in Perth. Be interesting to see the correlation and the patterns there, because drop-ins don't usually break up as much. In fact, they're just a concrete tray, basically, that gets put in at the start of the season. So the soil and the roots don't penetrate and all that complicated stuff that curators would know. But that is an interesting sort of point to look at, is because maybe that is the reason. They just wanted the drop-ins to do a bit more than they have done in the past. And that's why we've seen what we've seen in Melbourne. That's what we've seen. Because obviously going back to that 2017-18 test in Melbourne, that didn't break up as much, didn't it, on that pitch? So that's why the MCG went full 180 and decided to produce pitches like this, which have created results. And the wickets at the MCG have done pretty well over the last few years, barring this one this year for Boxing Day against England and Australia. But the other ones have been all right. I thought the India wicket last summer was good. That was pretty flat, good for batting, but we're able to get a result there. So that's an interesting point to look at in terms of the drop-ins. They do make a difference. What's your point on that, Jehan?
Well, I think they were still able to make decent wickets when there were drop-ins 20 years ago. So I'm not saying it's easier, but they were still able to do it. So, and it's not like a new thing. Like, they've been doing this for a while now. So, I think they just need to just make sure. I don't understand, like, when they leave so much grass on the wicket. Like, that's going to be doing too much, especially when it's like that thatchy, uneven kind of grass.
Yes.
So, yeah. I just think they need to, just make things a little bit more consistent, I suppose. And that goes for the shield wickets as well. For example, if you when you look at the Optus wicket, I don't think they've quite got that right for Test matches since they started playing there. It's either ridiculously flat and nothing's happening, like that match they played against the West Indies, or when it flattened out against India last year, or it's doing all sorts. And when I say all sorts, I mean seam movement, kicking off length, sometimes low bounce. That wicket against Pakistan, that was very up and down. And
yes,
I don't. I don't remember the whacker ever being like that on the first few days. Maybe
No.
when cracks started to appear in the whacker towards the end, you may get some of that, but until then, it's a pretty good surface. That was the unique thing again about the whacker, even though it was really quick, really pacey, really bouncy. The pace and bounce was always the same. You wouldn't get one ball kicking up and one ball keeping low, or one coming off the surface a bit slower. You wouldn't get that, but you get it. But they haven't been able to replicate that at the Optus for test matches anyway. I watched the wickets in the Big Bash games, and they look like really good batting wickets. And I just think, why don't you just produce those for the test matches? I know they have to last 5 days, so maybe it's something about that comes into them, but still, like, that seems, those wickets they play in the Big Bash at the Optus, that to me looks like a decent wicket to play a test match on, because the ball carries
they usually
through.
are. Yeah, they're pretty good for batting. I suppose T20 cricket, Test cricket, 2 different formats, but I suppose it takes a bit of time for the pitches to get settled. At that,
I don't think that one's quite settled in yet.
No, not really. When was the first Test played there?
2018, I think.
2018-19 against India, so that's nearly 10 years. So it takes a while for them to bed in and get settled. So, we'll have to wait and see on that. But it's an interesting sort of point to look at, really, the drop-ins, and whether or not drop-ins were good before drop-ins and after drop-ins, whether or not the numbers have increased. So it'd be interesting. I think someone asked me about that once on the podcast. I think someone asked me about that. What were the stats between the numbers pre-drop-in wickets and post-drop-in wickets? I think someone's done the numbers or stats on it. It'd be interesting to have a look at them. Maybe we've started something there, Jehan. Maybe people will do some research into that. It'd be interesting to see about that. But it's definitely a big talking point, pitches in Test cricket. And it does make a big difference on the outcome of game. And we've seen that in this Ashes series recently with these 2-day tests in Perth and Melbourne especially. It does make a difference. So it would be interesting to see what countries around the world, not only Australia, but other countries around the world do in terms of their preparations for pitches and all that stuff going forward. Will they get better? Will they get worse? We shall wait and see on that. I thought we talk about in this Cricket Ramblings episode, Jehan, our next discussion point, I suppose, Test batting techniques in Test cricket. Have they declined? Have they got better in terms of the batting techniques? A lot of people have talked about techniques. It's different now, Test cricket in this modern generation. Also, with the advent of T20 cricket, it's changing the way that batters go about Test cricket. Not many are willing to show a bit of resilience and fight and stick it out, as people did in the old days, batted for long periods of time, which is a skill in itself. Many players were very good at doing that. Not so much in the current crop of Test cricketers at the moment around the world. Maybe a sign of the times. A lot of people said that was the case in Melbourne. There was a lot of that going on in terms of batters not willing to stick it out. So, Jehan, from your perspective, do you think Test batting techniques in Test cricket have declined? Do you think they've gotten worse since the last century, or even the last century of Test cricket, and maybe in the early years of this modern era? Do you think they're getting worse or improving slightly? Because it is a very interesting topic and discussion point to talk about, because in terms of judging how badly pitches are, we often have to have a look at how the players react on the surface, and probably it's a bit of both, maybe the pitch, but also batting techniques as well. So your thoughts on that?
I think if you look at England, I don't think they care about defensive batting techniques, because they're basically a lot of their players anyway, are trying to play T20, one-day cricket in Test cricket, so I don't think they're too bothered about defensive techniques, and that's one of the things that has been found out on this tour, when there's been a little bit more in the wickets for the fast bowlers compared to what they play on in, or have been playing on in England. So they think they can play Test cricket that way. I think Australia generally, well, they don't play that way. They play in a more traditional way, but they've all got, not all of them, but they have technical flaws as well. Technical flaws is one thing, and also not having the patience to bat time and pace an innings in the long format. So I think that's probably Australia's issue mostly. I don't think they're not getting out because they're trying to play T20 cricket. It's not like England in that sense. But they are getting, their techniques are getting exposed. I mean, Marnus Labuschagne has got that technical flaw that he has been getting out to in exactly the same way for the last 2 or 3 years. And it's just that he squares up off the back foot. I don't think he really knows where his off stump is. A lot of the time he gets out defending to balls that are well wide of off stump. He defends with an angled bat as well. And that is the way he got out in the second innings. He got out so many times like that in the 2023 Ashes, and it's just, he kind of, he's stuck in the crease. He's deep in the crease. Even when he leaves the ball, you don't get a sense of that. You sort of feel like he's only just managing to keep that out by leaving it. He leaves at the last minute and he's still way back in the crease. Can you remember how Ricky Ponting used to leave? He used to get well forward, and then if the ball's outside off stump, shoulder arms. And if the ball's coming into him, he'd try and get the bat down. And even if he missed it, he's not going to be out because he's outside the line of off stump. Whereas if you look at Marnus Labuschagne, he's almost sort of leaving off the back foot. And then you feel like if you just keep bowling that line and length, I mean, it's actually quite a full ball as well. It's not short, it's a pretty full ball, but he's just playing from the crease, squares up off the back foot, and he just keeps edging it. And the thing is, you know that's an issue when no one else is getting out that way. So you know that's only happening to him. So that there's an issue, there's a technical issue there. Jake Weatherald, I think the way he crouches in his stance, his head is leaning way over to the offside, and he's completely imbalanced. So if you imagine your head is supposed to be at 12 o'clock, but his is going over to 2 o'clock all the time. So I think at times he doesn't know where his off stump is, which is why he got bowled by Stokes from around the wicket that day. So a ball that I didn't think really did much. It was just a ball coming into him. When he got out LBW last Test match, and when it pitched outside leg stump, and he didn't review it, I don't think he knows where his leg stump is either, because he's at an angle.
Yeah.
Right. And even similarly, when he was out LBW, when it did pitch on leg stump in Perth, he reviewed that because he thought it might. So there's a misalignment there. That's a technical issue, and I think they can go back and he can work on that with a batting coach, because apart from that, I think he did kind of look. He did look like he could play at this level. He wasn't like, he didn't struggle with the pace, or he looked at home when he got himself in. So I think that's a technical thing that can be corrected. Usman Khawaja, probably technically the best of the Australian batting lineup. He looked really good when he scored that 29 in the first innings. But the one thing that he doesn't do that well is he doesn't get forward. He plays everything from the crease. That's just the way he plays. But that's actually what led to his dismissal in the first innings. Really good ball, but yes, he's hesitant to get forward. And then Cameron Green, he plants his front foot, Cameron Green, and that gives him two issues because he then goes after balls wide of off stump when he doesn't need to. And then I also think that he's one of the few players from WA who actually struggle a little bit against the short ball because he plants his front foot and struggles to get back. So I mean they've all got these technical issues. And the best players in the world, they, when they're batting, the reason they score so many runs is because they don't have those issues that are going to keep getting them out the same way. And if they do start getting out in those sort of ways, and they work out a way around it, or they realise that's what they're doing, and they make little adjustments. And that's something that Steve Smith has done really well. Something that Ricky Ponting did well throughout his career. When he saw something coming up that kept getting him out, he would make adjustments and correct those things. So, yeah, I think defensive technique in particular is it's probably not as good as it used to be.
Yeah, I suppose that's probably the modern way, I suppose. Techniques change over time. Everyone's got a different technique that they go about things with their own batting. Probably, sort of going off script, so to speak. But also T20 cricket as well has changed the way that batters have approached it with their mindset and mentality, and not willing to grind it out and show that mental resilience and bat for long periods of time. It can be done, but it's a skill, and a lot of people would remember, many cricketers who've done that. Jacques Kallis was known as a stonewall cricketer because he used to do that for South Africa. People said, they didn't really like the way he played, but he got the job done, and he scored over 13,000 test runs and 40-odd centuries, so he must be doing something right. He was one that could bat for long periods of time. Ricky Ponting was one. Cheshwar Pujara from India. The reason that India won the two series in Australia because of him, because he batted for a long period of time. And that's why they were able to win those two series in Australia. Brian Lara did it. Sobers back in the day, scoring those big, scores that they did, willing to just to bat time and soak up pressure, whereas the modern day player don't quite do that as well as their counterparts.
Rahul
Dravid
was a
Rahul Dravid was another one.
Chanderpaul scored a lot of runs in England when the ball was swinging around all over the place, and the rest of the West Indian batsmen didn't know how to handle that. He knew how to apply himself. Maybe that art of that art of batting time, getting yourself in, has gone away. Probably because of all the short form cricket.
Yes, probably that as well. And then even when batters do play like that, people complain that they're taking too long. So you can't win, I suppose. People say, he's, that particular batter's batting slowly. They're not being proactive or anything. But what do you want them to do? Do you want them to soak up pressure and stay out there and all that stuff? Or do you want them to go at a million miles per hour as you would in T20 cricket? I think sometimes people can't pick or choose one or the other.
What was the big reason that Australia won that Edgbaston Test match?
Well, the reason they did is because they took it deep, and they were able to take it deep and see what they can do towards the end. And Cummins and Lyon were able to win that Test match because of that partnership they put on, and wore England down. Khawaja was instrumental.
He batted on all 5 days of that Test match.
He did.
And England just couldn't get him out.
No.
They couldn't get him out, and he hung around for 160 odd. Was it 160 he got? Something like that.
I think it was something like that, yeah.
Yeah. And in the second innings as well. So, he was And you can't say that he was completely stonewalling. He played shots as well, but they were all calculated shots. None of them were risk-taking. None of them were loose. But he defended well, and he didn't fret if the scoreboard wasn't going anywhere. You know.
No, that's right. And I
And you can
suppose
always
everyone gets used to that T20 mindset, especially players and fans. If the scoreboard doesn't tick along, you get a bit frustrated and you think you're batting too slowly. But that's how Test cricket was played back in the day, and it served the test of time. Whereas we haven't quite seen that in this modern era of late in terms of batters around the world doing that. We didn't quite see that in Melbourne for this fourth Ashes test. But when you did stick in, you're able to score runs. And that's what we saw from a few in this fourth test in Melbourne. So, yeah, a bit of mentality, a bit of mindset, and just patience, really, Jehan. That's the big word, patience. No one has patience anymore. I suppose we're all guilty of that in all walks of life, that we're not patient with certain things. But in Test cricket, you need patience. And that's why those players I mentioned before were able to score the big scores that they did, is because they batted for long periods of time. And you're not going to score those amount of scores if you don't bat for long periods of time. That's why we don't see many people score double centuries anymore.
Yeah.
Let alone triple centuries, let alone 100, let alone 150. So,
well, I think they worry that they're going to get out if they're not scoring runs.
no,
So they find ways of trying
of getting out. Yeah,
they're worried. Yeah, they're worried that if they just hang around, if they just stay in without trying to get out, that someone will get them out. So that I think that shows that they're worried about their ability to stay there for a long time and their defensive techniques essentially. But you have to be able to trust that. You've got to be able to be like, my defense is good enough for me to stay in here for a long time. The only way I'm going to get out is one, if I play a silly shot, or if I get a really good ball. But it's up to you to bowl that really good ball. I think that's the mindset that it should be, but yeah, I don't think a lot of these players, they just start fretting if they're not scoring freely.
Yes.
Well, that's the problem.
Yes, well, that is the problem. And it's coming back to T20 cricket and the way the game is playing, the way the game's evolving. I suppose everyone wants quicker run rates and scoring rates and strike rates, and people don't care much for watching nutritional test match cricket as it was back in the day, especially in the early days. Don Bradman's time, people don't want to watch that type of cricket anymore. They want to watch a different type of test cricket. And I suppose it just reflects the changing landscape of cricket in general, really, and the game has to evolve. So I suppose we have to get used to this new norm of batting and the techniques that batters have. But, as I always say, Jehan, to be a good batter, you need a good defense. If you can trust your defense, you can bat for long periods of time. And I don't think many cricketers are trusting their defense. Certainly in this Ashes series that we've seen from Australia and England, in particular England, they don't trust their defense to bat for long periods of time, which is an art in itself. And it's something that needs to be taught. And certain people can do it. Not everyone can bat for long periods of time and bat for marathon hours on end. Certain players can do that, others can't. So it's a skill and you have to work on it. But it's certainly a big talking point, that's for sure. And probably that's why people are saying that's the way Test cricket's going at the moment, in terms of the averages going down and batters not really showing that fight and commitment. And as Ben Stokes said in this Ashes series, Jehan, I want to see a bit of dog and mongrel. Sadly, a lot of batters are not showing that at the moment. It could have been a lot different in Melbourne if both teams applied themselves a bit better. Maybe it could have been a different result. Would you agree to that, Jehan, or do you think it would have been a similar result, or do you think if they showed a bit more fight, character, maybe it could have petered out to 3 days and probably ended the way it did?
Well, I think probably par on that pitch was 225, 250. So if Australia got that, I still think England would have been bowled out for 110 in the first innings, because bowling was just too good for them. And England's only way of playing in those scenarios was to hit out, which Harry managed to do for a bit. But yeah, so, and then going into the third innings, Australia would have had a lead of 100 odd, and they would have got enough. Even if they collapsed in the third innings, they would have got enough, and yeah, they probably would have gone on for 3 days as opposed to 2. We wouldn't be talking about how terrible the pitch was. So, yeah.
Yes, no, that's very true. And I suppose that's a perfect segue, Jehan, to talk about duration of test matches. We're seeing test matches not finish in 5 days anymore. They either finish in 4 days or 3 days or even 2 days, as we've seen in this Ashes series and other parts of the world. Obviously, test matches weren't 5 days initially. There were timeless tests. There were test matches in England in the early days that were 3-day tests. Some people say we should play 4-day test cricket, like we do in first-class cricket. I think those arguments will be justified now, seeing that, in this Ashes series, we've had 2 days where 2 test matches are finished in 2 days. But do you think, Jehan, as cricket fans, we have high expectations of test cricket in terms of wanting it to go 5 days? Do you think that's unreasonable in this current state of test cricket because of the way the game's going? Do you think we should temper those expectations and expect a lot shorter test matches? Maybe 3 days, maybe the occasional 4-day, maybe the 5-day will be a rarity. As we've seen in this Ashes series, we saw the test match in Adelaide go 5 days. Second session on the 5th day, which was a pretty good test match in the end. It was, England was sort of, people say, well, England, are they in it? They weren't in it. They chasing 430 odd is always going to be a difficult task. But it produced some drama, I suppose, but Australia were able to finish off the job. Whereas the other test matches in this Ashes series, I think the test match in Brisbane went 4 days. Obviously, Melbourne and Perth went 2 days. And we don't know what's going to happen in Sydney. So do you think we're sort of, setting ourselves up as cricket fans for disappointment, Jehan, and just we should accept that test matches ain't going to go 5 days anymore? Maybe the odd one will.
I don't really remember too many test matches going to 5 days, even before. Generally, if they go to 5 days, it's because the wicket's really flat and the two teams are reasonably, well, then there's not a huge discrepancy between the two teams' abilities. So the reason if the teams are more close together, that's when it would. And if the pitch is really flat, then that's when it would go potentially to 5 days. I think I'm right in saying most test matches last 3 to 4 days. So I don't think the expectations are high that all tests go to 5 days. I'm sure the authorities would love them to go to 5 days because of the financial incentives involved there. But but we just need to get rid of 2-day tests. we can't be having so many 2-day tests. A 3-day test is okay if it gets to the end of 3 days and it's been a reasonable contest between bat and ball. Same if it's 4 days. Sometimes matches go into the first session of the 5th day, just for the conclusion. That's okay. But I think it's unrealistic to be expecting 5-day test matches with the result being decided in the final session. That can happen sometimes, but it's the nature of Test cricket that it's not always going to be that close.
No, that's true, and I think we often make a big point of that. Of course, we want to see as much cricket as we want to. We want to have 5 days, but it's probably unrealistic as well, knowing that you can't control the pace of the game. You can't dictate how both teams will go about it. Some finish earlier than others.
It's like expecting every tennis match to go to 5 sets.
Which doesn't happen if it's Novak Djokovic versus Roger Federer, probably.
Yeah.
But if it's difference in skill sets, probably not. Probably over in 3 sets. Probably 3-love.
And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
That's fine. That's nothing wrong with that. In Test cricket, probably the same as well. If it ends in 3 days and you've had a reasonable amount of cricket, barring weather, then that's all right. If it's gone into 4 days, that's okay. If it's gone into 5 days, great, that's fine. Over the last few years in Australia, not many Test matches have gone 5 days, obviously because of the pitches. I think, obviously, the one in Adelaide in this Ashes series went 5 days, and then I don't remember anything else after that. Well, India last summer, I don't think we had many that went into the 5th day. I think Melbourne... Did Melbourne go into the 5th day?
Melbourne did.
Yes, Melbourne did. That was the only one. The others finished in 3 days or less. So I don't remember many in Australia, but obviously back in the day, there were quite a few that did, obviously. But it depends on the pace of the game, the weather as well, and people want that excitement and intensity. But you're not going to get that now. Do you think we should... Sorry, Jehan, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, whatever you watch, you want to see a high quality of cricket. So if that means Brett Lee, 2002 Perth, running in on a lightning quick wicket and tearing through England, and match ends in 3 days, you get to see Australia batting well, I'm fine with that. At least you've got to see quality cricket there.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't want these 2 day matches on terrible pitches.
No, it sort of feels like a T20 match. Then you forget about it afterwards. That it ended in 2 days. Yeah, I suppose that's just the way it goes. I suppose people saying, it doesn't go to 5 days and over rates, we don't get 30 overs in a day. Well, I suppose if you're seeing good quality cricket, then it doesn't matter with over rates, I suppose, Jehan. I think over rates are a problem that's a constant problem. Probably the players and everyone else within cricket need to improve that. But it's probably the same as the duration of the test, isn't it? It doesn't matter how many overs you have in the day. At least you're watching good quality cricket. Then it doesn't matter. But you hear a lot of people complaining about that, and obviously being shortchanged, and obviously not 90 overs in a day. But would you agree with that, Jehan?
You don't want to watch 10 to 15 overs of filthy spin just because they're behind the over rate.
No.
I mean, that's for the sake of trying to entertain the crowd with a higher over rate. That doesn't really make a lot of sense. Yeah.
Well, do you think we should change from 5 days to 4 days, Jehan? That's been a big talking point in Test cricket over the last few years. People saying 4 day tests. We initially see 4 day tests against countries like Afghanistan, Zimbabwe, and Ireland. They've had 4 day test matches played in the recent years. Do you think we should change that? Because players are used to playing 4 days in first class cricket anyway. Do you think we should, because of the nature of the pace of Test cricket and what we've discussed in this episode about pitches and batting techniques and Test cricket sort of declining in some sort of way? Do you think, will that make a difference, or do you think leave it at 5 because of weather and other things? So what are your thoughts on that, Jehan? Do you think we should?
Yeah, so weather's going to... No, I definitely wouldn't. Weather's going to be an issue. Daylight hours is going to be an issue as to how many hours you can get in the day, wherever you are in the world. It varies from country to country. And the other thing is, weaker teams are going to start producing absolute roads to try and get draws, because it's going to be a lot easier to draw a 4 day game as opposed to a 5 day game. those pitches they played on in Pakistan, if they were 4-day test matches, it would be 0-0 after three matches.
Pretty much.
So you don't want that really.
No.
The only way they could do that is if you were guaranteed that the pitches were consistently going to be a good balance between bat and ball, but we can't seem to do that at the moment. They're either really ridiculously flat, like in Pakistan or in England at the moment, or they're the other way, like at the MCG. So I think, if they can control that a little bit better, have a little bit more uniformity in how test pitches are, so they're not too far one way or the other, then maybe you could think about reducing it to 4 days. But I wouldn't do that at the moment.
Yeah, I'm a traditionalist, Jehan, and I'm sure you are too. That 5 days is probably the right amount, really. It never was 5 days back in the day. Test cricket used to be 3-day tests in England in the early 1800s. Used to be timeless tests. Should we go back to timeless tests, Jehan? Timeless test matches.
I think logistically that would be a nightmare to sort out, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. I don't think you want to.
One idea, one idea I had. It's not a very popular idea. People are going to hate this, but why not have a 1 innings 3-day match?
Yes, that could be interesting.
Yeah,
maybe
mini test match.
Yes, potentially. That would be interesting to see, but it would be interesting to see. I would always like to. I had this idea in my head, Jehan. I would like to see a test match played as a timeless test with the wicket not covered, so uncovered pitches. I don't think they'll do that now, health and safety, but it would be cool to see how you would go. Uncover pitches and just play a timeless test and see how you go. Be pretty interesting, as it was back in the day in Don Bradman's time. But, getting caught on a sticky wicket or wet dog would be challenging in this modern era. But
it probably only lasts 1 day.
Sorry?
It probably only lasts 1 day.
Probably. But it would be interesting to see how it would go. These things, how Test cricket was played back in the old days to now. It's very different. It'd be interesting to see how that would go. Maybe we should do that. Maybe we should play Test cricket with the old laws back in the early days of cricket. That would be pretty cool. Get a new ball, not at 80 overs. I think it was a lot less than 80 overs back in the day. Can't remember off the top of my head, but the laws were very different back then. Unlike now. But it'll be interesting. Who knows? Maybe they will go for your idea of playing 1 innings across 3 days. Something different, maybe.
Yeah.
Experiment. Try something different there. But I suppose people have these expectations in terms of, okay, we want a test match to go 5 days and all this stuff as well. But I think as cricket fans, we just need to temper the expectations and just enjoy the cricket that's in front of us. I think we just have to get used to the modern test cricket now, Jehan. It's definitely changing.
Yeah.
Is it for the better or is it for the worse? I don't know. What do you reckon, Jehan? Is it going to get worse or better test cricket in the next few years? I suppose it depends on all the countries, but how do you see it? Because I know we've had this discussion many times on the podcast, you and me, on Test cricket, but where do you see it in the years to come?
I can only really see it getting worse, to be honest. There's a few issues, but firstly, only a few countries really invest much in Test cricket and really give importance to it. So that would be England, Australia, India, and I suppose South Africa recently. But there was a time when South Africa were prioritising franchise cricket over Test cricket. I think that this summer they're not playing a single test match, which is ridiculous when you think about it. So they're obviously not too, and they're the world champions as well, supposedly.
Yes.
So, and they're not even playing a home summer. So that's got to be a red flag. Subcontinental teams, all they'll keep doing is trying to win on sandpits at home, and they don't really do much outside of home, apart from maybe India recently in the last few years. And you've got all these franchise leagues going on everywhere, and everyone wants to play in them, losing all the best talent to T20 cricket. It's only the rich countries and the rich boards that are able to afford to keep players like Mitchell Starc from playing too many of those and saving himself for Test cricket. So yeah, unless something major is majorly done about it, it's just going to fall away. And even if there is Test cricket, the quality is not going to be as good. And we're already seeing that, to be honest, aren't we? I mean,
with the West Indies and how they're going. Yeah.
I mean, the Melbourne Test match was an example of that.
Yes. Well, I suppose there's some hope for the West Indies. They did well in that first test against New Zealand. In New Zealand, but they batted for a draw, and that was a good effort. So there's some hope.
Well, there's always been hope, but they've just never managed to actually get it back to how they were in the, even as far back as the late 90s, early 2000s. So, and I can't see it happening for them because they only prioritise T20 cricket. They have just about enough talent to still have a test team with all their main talent going away to T20 cricket, but it's always going to be mediocre, isn't it? I mean, they're going to have the odd shining light, like when Shimar Joseph bowled into victory at the Gabba, but that's not going to be a regular thing.
No,
very few and far between.
Yeah, no, that's right. And I suppose it comes down to how the World Game's governed, I suppose, and we've had many discussions on that in the past on this podcast, and other people have as well. But yeah, it is definitely something to look out for and see where Test cricket will end up in the future. Well, thanks everyone for listening to our Cricket Ramblings episode on Is Test Cricket Declining? If you're watching or listening to this episode of the podcast on our YouTube channel, let us know your thoughts on Is Test Cricket Declining in the comments. We would love to hear what you have to say. Thanks, Jehan, for joining me today for this Cricket Ramblings episode to discuss Is Test Cricket Declining. It's always a great pleasure to have a chat with you, Jehan. Thanks, everyone, for watching and listening. Until next time, keep safe and bye for now.